Starfleet Academy is canceled. No third season. But look, guys, we've been here before. It's just a whole new country now. Yes, this is Second Opinion, Dr. Trek's Second Opinion, a very special Dr. Trek Second Opinion. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. And it is Dr. Trek coming at you here from the heart of Trekland, letting the dust settle just a bit on all the Trek headlines. In this case, just a few hours. But look, instead of another hot take or a quick take, you're going to get a second opinion from Dr. Trek. Because look, I have been writing, editing, interviewing, witnessing, hosting, archiving, dot connecting, and yes, fanning Star Trek for a while now. And I just want to say, Starfleet Academy has been canceled beyond the second season that's now being posted, right? So no 4-year mission of Action Academia for our cadets after all. It is a shock, but we have been here before. Now, I have no doubt that there's a chunk of fandom, chunk of online world out there that is celebrating this news. I think it's a lot smaller than you've been led to believe, but it's out there. But really, as I have been saying for 2 years now, around everything Trekland, for Trekland Tuesdays Live, with the Portales, my subscribers in Portal 47, anywhere that I have been a guest and been asked the question, this has been something we've been waiting to see what's happening. Look, there's a lot more dominoes to fall. Because in a bigger picture, between the Paramount buy, sale, slim down, merger, buy again cycle that we've had the last 5 years, and the way the old Netflix streaming model, the mystique was exposed, was ripped wide open, especially during the labor strikes, the writers and actors strikes in 2023, that it was truly an emperor with no clothes. Yes, between all of that and, again, the power of people to cynically cash in on chaos online over the socials or just amplify their opinion way louder than is really represented in way life, right? And I understand we found this to be popular outside of pop culture too. Now look, we've never been so dependent upon metrics to give us an accurate picture. I think that's what's at the core of this, because there has never been a time with all of that going on, so many layers, never been a time when culture and tech and media and capitalism and world events have affected just how little old us, we just want to see our Star Trek. Hopefully, we'll still have some new Star Trek past the next couple of years to pile on this 60-year legacy that we're supposed to be celebrating this year. Again, we've been talking on Trekland Tuesdays Live every week. It'll be since 2017, 9 years in a couple of months. And my Portal 47 subscribers. And yeah, anywhere I've been asked the question, on a pod or on a panel, Trek right now, Star Trek, is really like some kind of the future. I'm not talking about the individual moments of individual formats and series and all of that. I'm talking like the big picture of Star Trek is like some kind of choose your own adventure story maze. There are literally options branching off of options. And I got to say, right now, in some ways, today felt like 21 years ago. I'm talking the day close to the outside public, but internally, when the word came down, shooting in A Mirror Darkly Part 2 during Enterprise, that the word came down that there would be no Season 4 of Enterprise after all. And just like then, just like with the original series, it feels like Trek is almost dependent on forces beyond its control. And it's basically trying to straddle, like Will Rogers on a buck and bronc. It's a flux, trying to get a bridle on this flux of changing media, changing platforms, changing view patterns and changing audiences. And it's not just about who is watching and why or how many, but how and where they're watching. I mean, really, no one had to question that in 1966. I mean, their original problem was, are they watching in black and white or color? Are they taking sci-fi seriously or not? And here's the thing, if this makes you feel better at all today, or if it's a cautionary tale, just think. For all the times after TOS that Star Trek was deemed the flagship for Paramount, right? There's only been two examples of where it went well. Okay, as a pioneer price model for low cost VHS tapes, broke open the market for home rentals and home streaming with Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan. Before that, it cost $60, $70, $80 for cassette tape in the early 80s. Right. Star Trek II comes out at what, $19? $20 for a tape, boom. And that only explodes the home ownership market, but the home rentals, right? The video store. And we're off to the obtainable media boom, which went from VHS into DVD. That. And then number two, TNG actually showed how first-run syndication could not only work, but unite its own network of local stations, apart from an OG network, an old brick-and-mortar network. Yes, those gatekeepers could be bypassed for people who felt like they had a better pulse on the public. Gene got his revenge on NBC and the old network system. Paramount cut out the middleman, and TNG didn't have to live on the bubble. It was so successful that neither did DS9. So look, TOS started off to Paramount being an investment that they had to take. It was a chunk of Desilu they just bought. It was a loss leader. It was an expensive white elephant and canceled. Within a year, they took back their offer to sell it off to Gene, lock, stock, and barrel, because the demographics that were the hot thing to measure actual audiences proved that Star Trek was the hottest thing on TV, which was, pretty good for a cold corpse. And then right on top of that, local stations' ratings were going through the roof at dinner time or after school when they were smart enough to show Star Trek to the audience that was the audience of the movie at the moment. But look at the other times flagship status didn't do it well. Neither Voyager nor Enterprise could eventually save the fifth network, UPN. And a lot of that had nothing to do with Star Trek. It was UPN being a dinky little network that was being squeezed out as too little too late for that paradigm, right? And now we're being told that Star Trek is not fitting streaming, that it's falling off the Nielsen top. What does Nielsen has been struggling to define streaming models for the last few years, and what gave rise to Parrot Analytics and others trying to get a handle on this. Again, metrics are the money. Yeah. Are we in a case once again of the metric not fitting the model? Look, this is a case of metrics, just like TOS, misplaced metrics. It was the hit show that no one knew about because the yardstick wasn't the right kind. And look, the dirty secret about Enterprise's last season, it was the #1 TiVoed show on TV. Remember that? Yeah. Enterprise was the #1 recorded series on TV. But that was in the day when advertisers said, well, look, great. People are just fast forwarding through the commercials. That's crap. Well, now look. Now what's a metric that people use? Right? It's how many repeat views are there? Yeah. Star Trek has this star-crossed history of being mostly on the wrong side of the metric revolution. I don't mean metric English. You know what I mean? The way we measure for audiences. Local syndication? Check. Binge watching, making DS9 and Voyager and even Enterprise second chance gods of sci-fi devotion? Check. Networks using actual informative demographic ratings? Check. Re-recorded viewing? No, not in time. How do you really utilize the streaming mode for Trek storytelling today? Maybe, but it's still not here. So look, Realistically, after the last year or two, and all the chaos at the upper levels, who's owning, who's slimming down, who's making the decisions? What are people watching? Where are they watching it? How the hell does anybody have a handle on any of this? Is Big Daddy Netflix, that was the great god of streaming, really have the right dope on this? Is it really a model that works? In the old days, we had the real Nielsen ratings that the whole world saw every week in the trades. Here who's number one, here's who's number 100. Yeah, you set the commercial rates by that, but you also knew who was hot and who wasn't. So actors, writers, producers, everybody could act accordingly. The strikes showed we have very little transparency about this. And they were revolutionary trying to crack that nut open, but we still don't know. And here we are in an increasingly monopolized, mergered world. So, yes, Alex Kurtzman's contract, after all this time, when he was thrown into the mix and said, give us 1 million series because that's how streaming works. We can't let them end it. We can't let them churn. Can't let them end that subscription. We don't need them to take just 1 month to get all the Star Trek and then go away for the year. We need it to be there constantly every week and make the demand. That was streaming in 2017. And remember, yes, it was CBS, but CBS was actually the first legacy brick and mortar to jump into streaming after Netflix and, Prime. And Hulu was a consortium of everybody, remember? But standalone brands, no. There was CBS All Access before NBC Peacock and before ABC/Disney. Back then, the command was go forth and multiply and end the churn, right? It's a churny world. We're in a flux. Alex's contract is running up, and there's been so much said about it, so much the world has had its say back and forth. And on one hand, it feels like none of these Star Treks have set the world on fire or been allowed to, or again, been measured by the right metric. But that being said, I still feel like there is a hidden audience out there that finally, say, 3 years into Next Generation, stood up on its hind legs and finally said, we love this show. And all the original series people who had been afraid or fearful or angry of TNG were suddenly dwarfed. All the people that found out they loved DS9 and Voyager 20 years later, thanks to bingeability, they raised up on their hind legs and said, yes, DS9 storytelling, Cisco, Janeway. And what is so wrong with Enterprise? Those people, they eventually rear their heads. But right now, in the moment, I don't know. I actually wondered, one of those branching choose your own adventures was that maybe with the shift in streaming models and the new ownership, they say they want franchises. They say they want, on this merged HBO Max and Paramount Plus channel, they want all the franchises represented. That sounds like at least one series. And is the current model that it takes 1.5 to 2 years to start up? Well, you've got a season 2 for Academy next year. Then 2 years? Are we into that window? Oh, all those questions. One of the options might have been of choose your own adventure. No, we don't renew the contract, but we'll just slim down to one series and we'll renew Academy to be our bridge series until we figure out not just what we're doing, but who's in place to make the decisions to decide what we're doing. But that's not what happened. That is not what happened. They've canceled Academy first. And is that meaning the writing is on the wall? If Academy is gone, are we in the same place we were in 2006 when the clock just ran out? I'm sorry, 2005. When the clock ran out, not just on Enterprise being a canceled series, but over the next few months, and yes, into 2006, Rick Berman's contract just allowed to lapse. It didn't matter they commissioned a movie script for the Romulan War, Eric Jendrison's script. He could commission all the scripts from his own pockets that he could. But there was to be no continuation of the Berman era. And no continuation of Star Trek until a completely different paradigm jumps in as part of a completely unrelated J.J. Cole, who announces he's going to make Star Trek. And for all the people that thought Star Trek was dead and tired and needed to go rest somewhere for, 10 or 20 years, he knew better. And the think tank, the Supreme Court, that included Alex and the late Roberto Orci, decided after amongst themselves, and with the split Viacom divorce, with TV going over to CBS, who'd only owned it for 10, 20 years, thanks to all the prior mergers, and Paramount keeping the movies, that's what would have to happen. It would be a movie franchise for a while. Yeah. So again, all these layers are affecting what's going to happen. Today we get the news, maybe cart before the horse, who knows? No more Academy. Does no more Academy mean no more TV anything from Alex, and his deal is allowed to run out the same way Rick's was 20 years ago? Could be. Potential. But even beyond that, who would run TV? Is there even any interest in having a TV empire? Is just one series at a time going to be enough? Does anybody feel like they've got the confidence to know the formula for telling Star Trek in a streaming serialized platform, not so serialized? Look, have there been too many mergers? Yeah, is it really Warner Mount now? Too many mergers, too many franchises. This was my fear when this all started up and started up again. All those DC, all those franchises that Warner's has, including the cartoons, the old Hanna-Barbera, much less the Warner Brothers classics. So many. Is Star Trek now going to be a small fish in a big pond? Right? And will TV get lost in the shuffle for this movie emphasis that's part of the Ellison plan announced? I mean, look, I thought that the lesson we learned from the fallow years was that Trek's DNA is TV. You can have movies, but unless you're planning on having a plethora of movies, like do the MCU model, that it's not going to be satisfying. I tried to predict kindly that one Star Trek movie every 2 or 3 or 4 years was not going to satisfy our demand for Star Trek storytelling. Or maybe this will be a paradigm shift. Maybe there are forces that we can't predict, like bingeability, like changing media. Maybe we're going to live through a paradigm shift, and that will somehow change our consumption, our viewing, much less our storytelling habits, right? Again, have we even figured out how to do live action Star Trek as a streaming channel? Look, we have all decided that 10 is too few. And I see a lot of Hollywood professionals in and out of Star Trek decide that as well. We say, come on, at least 15. I'd prefer 18 to do Star Trek small screen right. Well, what if the streaming emperors all say, well then, I guess Star Trek, and if you need 15, you need 18, well, I guess Star Trek and its tech-loving, world-building, diverse and optimistic, future-embracing, it just doesn't fit our brave new world of 10-episode seasons. So, poof out. Sorry. Get with the program, Captain Dunsel. Do we know anything? How are the dominoes going to keep falling? This is the first one. You may think you know exactly how the rest, but there'll come a point when you don't know what's happening. Is someone in the wings ready to take on the Star Trek TV side? Are the movie folk that have one on the slate movie, are they going to stand by? Will the world see how that goes? And then they'll be anointed the TV side as well? Maybe on a strict, on a drinking straw size, but no more 5 series at a year, because streaming has changed, or it's evolving. Is it all evolving faster than we can keep up with? This is why I've been saying for the last year and a half, the small decisions affecting dozens of people, hundreds of people, these decisions, individual series, many of which have gotten tons of fans, many of which have fans that haven't even figured out where they're supposed to go and report in and show up. Because there's one thing I'm convinced of that we found out with the Kelvin movies and Star Trek 09. Online fandom is not all fandom. Even live convention fandom is not all fandom. That great sea of armchair Star Trek fans, they're not going to go away. They may be less active, but that is where things like the books and the comics and all those get by, the games. Yes, STO, Star Trek Online, and STA. And good for Star Trek Online for apparently having a renaissance here and not going over the cliff. Good timing, gang. And Star Trek Adventures, tabletop role-playing. Those will be there to take up the slack while the world figures itself out. Are we going to really be in for another fallow time, or at least a budgeted fallow time? A movie every couple of years with a new series? Will they be ongoing anthologies? Yeah, it is a weird time. And of course, it comes as the world outside doesn't know what the hell it's doing. Politically, technologically. So, 2005, 1969. We have been here before, but this is a whole new landscape. Star Trek is not going anywhere. There may be yet being a nascent bubble of popularity fandom that a year or two from now is going to blow up, like the local station viewing numbers, like the numbers around restreaming and recording. Star Trek has been too fast, too soon, and gone too soon to take advantage of the explosion, the spikes in popularity. Are we going to see that in a couple of years? Or is the world around us, the ownership, the tech, the viewership model, changing so fast that it's all just crazy for a while? Well, I don't know. What I do know is this saga is far from over. No matter who or what is running Star Trek, no matter what we're seeing in whatever media, now or to be invented. And hey, who knows what could happen in the next year and a half? We have 10 plus 6 more Strange New Worlds episodes to go. We have 10 more Academy episodes. Who knows? As whiplashy as this current time is, with external world events and media affecting what we're seeing as much as who's doing what and the way it's served up to us. Who knows what we'll be thinking and feeling and watching and pining for, as long as Paramount Plus at least keeps the content fresh. And yes, I'm well aware we live in a world where many people, and this may be affecting those view numbers, have stopped subscribing to Paramount Plus out of political protest. People want to get the discs. I've had people say, I'm going to get the discs for all these different seasons of all these different shows, legacy and recent, but I'm going to buy them secondhand. So I don't refresh the coffers of the corporation. There is a very angry slice of the fandom out there that feels completely torn, that the way they get more Star Trek and support it is to support a corporation they don't politically want to support. I don't think we've ever been there before. Where does that go? Did that actually affect, in at least a small streak, some of these numbers from the digital Nielsen's that seem to be bubbling up as at least one metric for measuring what to do with the series at hand? Again, we don't have transparency on this. The old days, you knew. You could read your Nielsen's list, top 100 shows, and you could get a clue where things stood. You might argue about what was on the bubble, but that's no longer true. Just as I hate this weird and now incredibly awkward moment where, if you think about it, Academy was renewed for a second season before any of us had even seen it. And now it's being canceled before we even have time to see that second season. This is what I keep saying is so wacky. I hate about the streaming era. The writers write it one year, it's shot and acted the next year, and then we get to talk about it when it's aired to the public 2 years later, 18 months later. That's not the way to build a franchise and a fan base. That's not the way to give the fans what they want. But is that even part of the recipe anymore? Is everything just 3-year, 10-episode seasons? And we'll talk about slapping Star Trek on something just to get people to watch. It feels like that's increasingly a potential if the streaming model Uber alles is what's going to run things. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. We don't know. It's been wacky. Look how much has swung since they first gave Alex a contract in November 2015. And nobody knew with this streaming monster, grab it by the tail, where is it going to take us? Well, some companies right over the cliff. But nobody has a clear-eyed view of what's happening. Netflix is churning out series after series after series. The helms have all been signed up. So that growth factor is gone. Now it's keeping them tuned in, keeping them subscribed. And where is that going to take us and lead us? Or, I don't know. In 3 or 4 or 5 years, are we just going to be being spoon-fed AI content like applesauce, and none of this will make any difference? Talk about a strange new world. Talk about a brave new world. That's what we've been talking about for the last 18 months, 24 months, with all of this happening. I know it's in focus today. Lots of things to think about, lots of smart people trying to pontificate, lots of profit-chasing people not caring about anything but the next quarter's balance sheet. And that, in a way, has always been part of the mix, but that is not what TV and movies were always about in 1966 or 1987 or 2005 or even, 2017. We'll see. We'll see. Hey, I guess that's as good a place as any to sign off on this special live edition of A Second Opinion. But look, what do you think? Drop your comments below, and please, would you like and subscribe my channel? Boost the signal. I dare you to subscribe for some Star Trek sanity, would you? And look, if you are so minded, as we would say on Tuesdays, I do have a Patreon. I want to thank all of my Patreon folk for being here. I give them shout outs on Tuesday. I'll save that. But thank you guys. It's very simple. Patreon.com/TreklandLive. And hey, if you are coming to Los Angeles and you want to celebrate the 60th in a great, incredibly creatively big way, and you've done the cruise, you're doing Trek Vegas, but have you thought about doing the LA to Vegas? We haven't done it in 10 years. The LA to Vegas locations multi-day tour the week before Vegas, geeknationtours.com. First time we've done this since the 50th in 2016. Yeah. Take a look, geeknationtours.com. And if that's a little much for you, you'd prefer a day tour, don't worry, we've got you covered with treklandtreks.com. Your own unique away mission. 4 location sites, not the stages, but the location sites around Greater SoCal that you pick with my help, and I am your concierge and your prop wrangler and your cosplay director. We have an awesome day, a memorable, different way to celebrate Star Trek. Nothing like standing in the place of those iconic location sites you've known since the original series and Next Gen and all the way through, including the one modern series to shoot in LA, Picard. Yeah. And of course, we're on hiatus now, but I got to give a shout out to my Roddenberry podcast, The Trek Files. Hey, it's at thetrekfiles.com on Memory Alpha. We had just concluded our 14th season. We're on hiatus until later in April. Back with season 15 then. Awesome shows coming up. It's your only podcast with paperwork straight from the actual files, unrevealed from Gene Roddenberry's archives, with a professional guest every week on Tuesdays when we're in season. 14 back seasons there, with a lot of folks and guests who are no longer with us. Dorothy Fontana, Gerald Frieden, on down. Give it a look, would you please? In fact, you can check out everything in Trekland with Dr. Trek. Larry Nemecek is on Twitter and Blue Sky. It's Larry's Trekland on Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, if you have not, please like and subscribe to all the things here. Ring the bell on my YouTube channel. And if you really want to deep dive backstage Star Trek, it's portal47.net. 10 years of going where no savvy fan has gone before, with the backstage folks, the creatives, no actors allowed. And we say that lovingly. Gang, it's all there. Thank you. Hope you enjoyed this special live second opinion. We'll be back on Tuesdays live again. The second season of Cadet Alice and Dr. Trek Watch Prodigy is coming up very quickly too. It's going to be an interesting 60th celebration year, kicked off with the cruise. Trek Vegas is coming. Many events, large and small, live and online, are on the way. Hopefully we'll see you around, if not on Tuesdays live. Thanks, everybody. Yeah. Like I say, if you crave more Dr. Trek and the Trekland point of view, you can check out all those Trek pods and live streams and experiences at LarryNemecek.com. Trek well, everybody.